Okay, so on to number 8, guys. This one is why new beekeepers should start with 2 hives. And again, I'm going to make sure we have everything for all 4 of ours, but we'll start with at least 2 when we first get started. So, alright. It may sound counterintuitive or even irresponsible to suggest that new beekeepers should plunge full stop and buy 2 hives right off the bat. But it is that in experience where keeping 2 hives proves the most beneficial. By all means, if you can only afford 1 hive, then 1 is better than none, definitely. But if you can afford 2 hive setups, or perhaps you have the opportunity to set up a hive with a friend, I recommend it. Before we got our first colony, we attended a beekeeping class. Read tons of books from the library and countless online articles. We've been keeping bees for 7 years, and a big part of me still feels like a newbie. In beekeeping classes, you learn about hive setup, you learn about brood boxes and honey supers, but there's a lot to beekeeping that can't be covered in a 2-hour class. Of all the questions I get asked over at my Iron Oak Farm blog about beekeeping, the majority of them start with, is it normal for my hive to be doing... Again, I want to reiterate the point that I'm just reading this, I'm just sharing the information to get the information out there and help other homesteaders. That's all I'm doing is sharing the information. When you start off as a new beekeeper, it's hard to determine what's normal, without something to compare it to. I feel like all of our homesteading endeavors, milk goats, fiber goats, gardening, and on and on and on, beekeeping has been the most experience-based endeavor we've attempted. I think the difficulty comes in the nature of the hive. Most people, even if they've never raised a goat, chicken, dog, can tell when an animal is sick. It's lethargic, won't eat, etc., but what does a sick hive look like? In our human experience, we don't come in contact with many situations that resemble a hive unless we get into beekeeping. So common sense beekeeping isn't really that common at all. You can observe changes in your hive, but what does it mean? Is it good that they're doing that? Is it bad? Is it normal? Beekeeping is different. For one thing, you don't necessarily care for individual bees. Unlike milk goats, for example, you don't milk individual bees. You don't feed individual bees. There aren't thousands of tiny feed bowls that you set honey out for each night. If someone doesn't finish her honey because she's not feeling well, you have no idea. You tend the hive as a whole. The hive is more like a complete animal, and the individual bees are the cells that keep the hive alive. Bees are also pretty much self-sufficient without us. When things are going well, bees are some of the easiest parts of the homestead. We're mostly observers, checking in now and then. Now and again. Their world, for the most part, is hidden from us. I'm with our goats twice a day. At the very least, I observe them, feed them, interact with them, but most of all, I compare them to each other. When one of our goat kids isn't taking as much of the bottle as his sister, I see the difference right away. Learning through comparison. Each hive has its own personality. Some hives are very vigorous and are great producers. Others are slower, may experience problems like mites, an unproductive queen, etc. When you have 2 hives, you can compare the progress of one against the other. Another great reason to have 2 hives is that if you lose one, you have a backup hive to split and move forward with. You won't have to wait a whole season before you can buy another nuke. And you see. The control hive. Having 2 hives also gives you what you can use as a control hive versus an experimental hive. If there's a technique you'd like to try with your bees, like a natural mite control versus a chemical one, you can use a comparison to see which techniques work best for your bees. I will not use chemicals. I just won't. If you can't afford 2 hives to begin with, try to find a beekeeping buddy that you can contact frequently. Join up and work together in hive inspections. Make a promise to try and share each time you make a change in your hive care or when you notice something different. And that was it for that one. That was why new beekeepers should start with 2 hives. And again, we're going to make sure we have all the equipment for our 4, and we're going to start with 2. So, I will see you guys on the next one. Hopefully I can get number 9 and 10 out there before I have to leave for work. I'll see you in a minute, guys.